Beneath the glimmering sea, unraveling Caelum's edge, darkest secret. In the fading hush of twilight, the coastal town of Caelum's edge seemed to exhale, its salt-stung streets veiled in mist, its sea-worn buildings standing like forgotten relics. Malcolm turned the sign on his bookstore door to closed and stepped into the deepening dusk, Eleanor's journal tucked tightly under his arm. He didn't lock the door, not tonight. His mind, haunted by the final pages in that journal, was already on the winding path to the lighthouse that crowned the cliffs like a weathered crown. Eleanor had always been more than the town's eccentric lighthouse keeper, a retired sea captain with eyes that seemed to have stared down storms and secrets alike. She spoke of tides like they had names, and of treasures like they had memories. And then, without goodbye or trace, she vanished. The townsfolk muttered about currents and missteps, but Malcolm knew you don't survive a lifetime at sea just to slip silently into it. Each step toward the lighthouse grew heavier with the weight of that truth. The sea crashed below with a kind of mourning, the rocks gleaming wet like obsidian teeth. When the lighthouse door groaned open beneath his hand, a rush of salt, mildew, and memory hit him like a tide. Dust danced in the slanted light as he passed Eleanor's oilskin coat, still hanging by the stair, boots beneath it unmoved, as if she'd stepped out only for a moment. He climbed, each creaking step up the spiral staircase brought him closer to the heart of Eleanor's mystery. At the top, beneath a loose floorboard, he found it, a map scrolled with coordinates, sea runs, and the symbol of a coiled serpent. The very mark Eleanor had once shown him in a book she said was older than any ship on the sea. Alongside it, a page torn from her journal in her distinct hand. If you're reading this, they found me, but they won't find what I've hidden. Let the tide guide you. Trust no one above the waves. He barely heard the footsteps below. By the time Detective Inspector Ainsworth appeared, gruff as ever in his storm coat, the wind had begun to howl louder, rattling the windows as though warning them back. You think she left breadcrumbs on purpose? Ainsworth asked, half skeptic, half believer, eyeing the map with unease. I think she didn't trust anyone but the ocean, Malcolm replied, already descending the stairs. The cliffs behind the lighthouse were steep, crumbling, rarely walked. But Malcolm knew the old smuggler's trail Eleanor had once pointed out in a quiet moment years ago. Lantern light flickered across the rocks as they moved single file, the journal there compassed. And then, just where the symbols had hinted, they found it. A hatch, rusted shut, beneath seaweed and stone. Beneath it, a chamber hollowed from the cliff itself. In the center, a chest sealed, with lid etched with wave patterns and runes that shimmered faintly under the lantern's glow. They opened it. Inside lay a talisman round, golden and still warm, humming softly as though it were alive. The moment Malcolm touched it, a pulse echoed through the chamber walls. Eleanor's voice seemed to rise from the silence. The sea gives. The sea remembers. Before they could speak, the wind above roared, and the lighthouse dormant, since her disappearance, flared back to life, casting its beam far across the churning dark. In that instant, both men turned and saw a light flicker far out at sea. It was not a ship's lantern. It was a signal. Ainsworth, for once, said nothing. He just looked at Malcolm and nodded. They didn't understand it all, not yet. But they would, because Eleanor hadn't drowned. She had gone deeper into something ancient, something hidden, something dangerous. She had protected the one thing. The sea had never surrendered its power. And now that power was awake. As the lighthouse beam swept back toward the cliffs, illuminating their faces in golden firelight, Malcolm looked out over the restless waves. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning.